Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Thanks for joining us. We're covering breaking news out of Washington where Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel is stepping down. We'll have that story coming up. But first, let's go to Ferguson, Missouri, where a grand jury has reached a decision.
Good evening. Some protesters have started to gather as we wait for officials to hold a news conference this evening announcing the results. A decision finally reached by the grand jury on whether or not to charge Officer Darren Wilson for killing unarmed teenager Michael Brown. People here in Ferguson, Missouri now anxiously awaiting the announcement after days of buildup in anticipation. Last night, about 150 protesters closed down streets in St. Louis.
Anytime you have a mass grouping of people of color like myself and you have law enforcement, it usually doesn't turn out too good.
But last night it did. The demonstration was peaceful. Over the weekend, though, there were several arrests outside of Ferguson Police Headquarters. And some law enforcement officials worry this was just a preview of the unrest yet to come. Police have been preparing, putting up barricades, planning to put 1,000 officers on the ground once the decision is announced. The National Guard and the FBI are also here ready to respond. The head of the Highway Patrol here tells ABC's Steve Osunsami he's optimistic about the reaction.
I would tell people this city is going to show their character. It is not going to be as bad as some people want it to be and some people expect it to be.
And Wilson could be charged with manslaughter, murder, or nothing. If he is charged, we're told he will already be in custody by the time the decision is announced. Live in Ferguson, Missouri, Marcy Gonzalez, ABC News. Now back to you.
All right, Marcy, thank you very much. Let me bring in my two compatriots here, Dominic Carter and Andrew Whitman. All right, guys, so this is what we're going to do for the balance of the hour. We're going to bring in our legal team in a little bit to talk about what happened in Ferguson or is happening in Ferguson, Missouri. But we expect to hear from the governor, Andrew, at about the mid-hour mark at 6:30, right?
Yeah, and the expectation is that he'll be with some black leaders in the community and he'll be appealing for calm and appealing for peace no matter what the decision is. I don't know if he'll know in advance what the grand jury's decision is going to be, but this will be laying the groundwork, trying to keep everybody calm and have not tried to avoid a repeat of what happened when Michael Brown was shot and killed.
That's right. Dominic, there's 4 charges, and we'll go over it with our legal team. We'll come out here in a little while and go over what those charges could carry in terms of penalties and the threshold to at least get an indictment at the grand jury level. Again, everybody, this is not the trial. This is not an innocent or a not guilty or guilty verdict coming tonight. This is whether or not it'll even go to trial. So we'll find out with those 4 charges. We'll talk about what to expect. We're expecting to hear about 8 o'clock tonight. As Andrew said, the governor's going to come out first, kind of prep everybody. But early this afternoon, we knew that the grand jury had come back with a decision. I'm surprised, how about you, that they waited till this late at night to do this. I expected they would have done this when there was daylight out, you know, tamped down instead of building up all the drama and the expectations the longer and longer they wait.
Well, Richard, the drama was going to be there no matter what when this came back. I'm a bit surprised too, but that it's coming down at nighttime because when it's dark, that's when the violence has occurred in the past. It's a good thing that the governor declared a state of emergency last week and that all forces are on guard, ready to go, because you need to send a message that violence is not going to be tolerated. And I've got to tell you, Richard, and I just want to say one other thing. If there is no indictment, we know you're going to talk to the lawyers in just a little bit, there are going to be a lot of angry people, not just in Ferguson, but around the country.
Well, to that point, we know that Reverend Sharpton, who seems to be involved,
he'll be there tomorrow. He's speaking tonight.
Exactly. Tonight he'll be speaking after, obviously, the announcements made by the prosecutor in Ferguson, Missouri. But there are, in fact, satellite protests, if you will, that have been designated. I will say, for whatever it's worth, folks on the ground in Missouri, there's a fatigue to this. That and you heard from the officer there, I think people may be surprised. It could be proven wrong.
There's no fatigue in the black community. There is absolutely no fatigue. But people want justice. And I mean, you can call it what you want. There may be fatigue in other communities, but the black community wants justice.
Okay. And obviously they do, no disagreement, but will that manifest itself in the riots? We will find out. So over the course of this hour, we're going to be talking about the charges that went before the grand jury. We'll talk about, obviously, not only the penalties with the legal team, but also the thresholds of what had to be convinced and where throughout this whole process. There was questions, did the prosecutor really present a case, or you just throw out the whole case before the grand jury and leave it to them? The makeup of the grand jury, and also, obviously, the timing for how this thing has all played out. We'll get into that. But when we come back, there's another piece of breaking news this morning that normally would have been the lead on any other night. We'll go to Washington, where Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel surprised just about everybody and announced his resignation. This is the president's national security team has been battered by crises in the Middle East and the Ukraine. Military analyst Mike Lyons is here to discuss why he believes Hagel is stepping down. Some people say he was pushed. We'll talk about that and much more after this.